This one's gonna be an eclectic episode. Welcome to Pegwarmers, I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about an estate sale I went to, some Super 7 Ultimate Thundercats, as well as a successfully funded Kickstarter that's from the G.I. Joe fan community. Let's dig into it. We'll start off new to the collection. I just picked up this G.I. Crunchies t-shirt. It was a Shirt Punch T-Fury. Limited day run shirts. I saw it on a Facebook group for G.I. Joe. It's got Beachhead on it. And Scarlet and Duke and Snake Eyes and everybody else you'd expect. Free. Jetpack included. Thought it was a cool shirt design. I have an Orko cereal shirt from years ago that I bought. And so I guess I collect fake 80s toy cereals from the 80s as t-shirts now. What else could I possibly collect? First main segment here, estate sale blues. I want to tell you about an estate sale I went to. I don't go to a ton of estate sales, but, from time to time, they're a good way to see some interesting stuff. Sometimes you find estate sales where people are selling collectibles or other things that you might need. I'm a tool person. I collect a lot of woodworking tools and things like that because that's what I do as part of my day job as a teacher and just sort of part of my passion, work around the house. And so actually I was looking at a local Facebook group for yard sales and flea markets, and this collector estate sale came up. And I looked at the pictures, and it was like trains and Hess trucks. I did an episode on Hess trucks. And some other, die-cast vehicle type things that just aren't really the type of stuff I collect. And I was still scrolling, and later on I came across this estate sale with pictures of somebody's, basement or garage with a bunch of power tools. So I forwarded the power tool ad to a buddy of mine, Lumber Dave. We love to go to flea markets and yard sales together, and we haven't been doing it as much lately. So we made plans, 6 a.m., we're going to go to this estate sale, and then we'll grab breakfast afterwards, hang out a little bit on a Saturday morning. And when we got to the house and I walked in, as soon as we walked in the house, I was like, oh, this is the collector estate sale. And I realized this person had posted 2 different themed postings for the same sale to try to attract, people who scroll past the collectibles might be interested in the tools, and they probably posted another listing for household stuff that I just scrolled past because it didn't interest me. And so we kind of breezed through the main part of the house and went out into the garage, and we're looking at the tools, and there was a bandsaw and a table saw and a lathe. I ended up buying a couple bar clamps. My buddy Dave picked up actually a planer, machine that makes wood thinner. I bought some sandpaper because sandpaper is stupid expensive at retail, but usually cheap at yard sales and flea markets. And then we went through the rest of the house. And actually, the whole time we were looking in the garage, I was holding one item. The one collectible type item that I purchased. And I picked it up almost immediately as I walked in. That's actually how I recognized it was the collector sale. It was this 89 Batman TV tray. I actually took the shrink wrap off of it to make the video because I figured it'd be extra reflective. But this was still shrink wrap, but the shrink wrap was shredded. It was on the corners and on the back. But this is a TV tray. So the legs fold out. Maybe I'll start using this for all my videos. I could just put the microphone on here. Or I could, sort the toys on here. Maybe that would work great for a video. Anyway, it's not a tin tray, which was pretty common back then. This one's actually a piece of hardboard with the graphics on it. The outer trim is metal, and the legs are metal. But the center part is just a picture on a piece of, particle board. But it is absolutely pristine. Michael Keaton there in front of the Batmobile. It's awesome. And I got it for a really good price, so I was happy with that score. The more we hung out, I went back and started admiring his other collection, the trains and stuff. Not that I was interested in buying them. But my buddy Dave and I were talking about how he built all of the fixtures and stuff. There was a lot of shelving, and it wasn't store-bought shelving. The guy had made his own shelves to fit die-cast vehicles and fit a lot in. The train table was handmade, and it had trussels for an elevated track. And I didn't know if the track was disassembled and somebody had already bought the train that was in the elevated track, or what the story was there, but we were kind of talking about it. Dave has some eloquent ways of talking about things, and he mentioned, like, this room was probably heaven on earth in its time. And I was thinking about that a lot with us collectors and our collector spaces, whether it's a man cave, it's your bedroom, it's your basement, a den, whatever. That's kind of what we're going for, right? And when the collection gets too big, sometimes it becomes overwhelming, which I have that feeling sometimes here with the stuff that I still haven't unpacked. Like, the areas that are set up, I love, and the areas where it's a pile of stuff drives me kind of crazy. But that's what we're going for, right? We're all going for that little slice of heaven on earth. And I thought it was interesting. And then, because Dave is Dave, and I'm not going to explain Dave exactly to you guys on here, because you've never met him, but he asks questions. At yard sales, at flea markets, he asks the vendor questions. So he asked, what happened to the dad? What happened to the people that lived in the house? And the mom had passed away in the late 90s. The dad lived on his own since then. They recently put him into a home. And they said shortly after the mom had passed away, he started building his train room. And he put the shelves up and made the train table, started building the trestles for the elevated tracks. And they said one day he just stopped working on it. And basically would get up in the morning, make himself breakfast, sit and watch TV, pet the dog. And he never really went back in there again. And I actually borrowed a phrase from Lumber Dave. And I said, he lost spirit in the project. And Dave nodded at me. That's a phrase he uses for when you're working towards a goal, you're working on a project, and you eventually stop working on it. It happens a lot to people that do woodworking. And I think it happens to people that collect, too, when you're trying to get your displays just right, and eventually you're just overwhelmed and you can't get it done. And it was just kind of poetic, but also really sad to look at this collection and this display setup that just never got finished. To know that it was never going to get finished, and now it was getting kind of picked apart by vultures. Not to say the people at the sale were vultures, but, we're all there buying his stuff for pennies on the dollar, right? Like, that's how it goes. And it made me think about, someday when my collection goes. I don't know if it's better to sell it before you can't enjoy it, or if it's better to just not know and let the vultures come pick on it. That's why I named today's episode Estate Sale Blues, just because it got me thinking. And I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below about whether you would rather sell your stuff before you can't enjoy it, or just not know what happens. I know people always talk about, well, what would you do, I had told my sister, get a hold of my friends, just let them take care of it, and, get the money from them. Don't worry about it. They know what's valuable, these people, Nick, Tony, whoever, Now my wife is in that position, right? Like, my wife's going to deal with all this stuff when I go someday if I don't sell it beforehand. And again, I don't know whether Tony and Nick will be there when that moment comes, right? Maybe you get to find somebody younger, or maybe no one will be into 80s nostalgia by then. I don't know. It's one of those weird things with the market is, when is that peak time? When is the value the highest on your collection? Not to say that ray guns and tin robots from the 50s aren't valuable anymore, but I think it would be harder to move them now than it would have been, 3 decades ago. And I think eventually the nostalgia wagon will end for a lot of these brands, and it will get harder to move these kinds of things. Some weird stuff I think about, and kind of morbid stuff that I think about sometimes. So let's move on to something more fun, something better. I'm going to jump over to G.I. Joe, and I'm going to talk about Dan Klingensmith's Creating G.I. Joe, the Real American Hero book series. I have shown these on the channel before. Dan Klingensmith's a really good guy who's been documenting the history of the development of the G.I. Joe brand. These books, alongside with Carson from 3D Joe's Collecting the Art of G.I. Joe, really tell you a great history of the brand. Both guys have worked extensively with people that worked on the G.I. Joe brand, interviewing them to find out about the process and find out what happens. These are the last two books. This is book 13 and 14. No, 14 and 15, I'm sorry, from Dan Klingensmith. He says the series is done, and these books both contain a majority of unproduced concepts. His earlier books, the earlier volumes, tend to have a few unproduced concepts, and then a smattering of figures from throughout the line. He didn't do like an 82 and then an 83 book. He just kind of threw in a splash of stuff throughout. Some books are heavier on a certain topic than another. Recently, there was one that talked about unproduced Night Force figures and things like that. These books are really cool. So I bought these through Kickstarter. I do not have all 15 books. I have most of them, but there are a few early on. I don't know how I missed the Kickstarters for them, and I just never got them. But this set came with slipcases for each 5 issues. They're red, white, and blue, and they feature couples from the G.I. Joe universe. So we've got Baroness and Destro. We've got Mainframe and Zorana. Notice the tattoo there. She doesn't have the shoulder pads. And Lady J and Flint. Notice she's got a crossbow instead of her javelin launcher. These came folded flat, so I gotta, unfold them, pop them out, make them into the slipcovers. And one of these days I need to track down his those couple early books. I have number 1, but I might be missing 3 or 4 somewhere in there. And then definitely from like 8 on, I have them all. So there's just a handful, maybe 4 or 5 that I'm missing. But I gotta do that, right? We can't have this incomplete set. Kind of along the same wavelength as these, I did want to mention how successful the Kickstarter is going for the Skybound reprints of the Marvel G.I. Joe comics. If you don't know, G.I. Joe comics were a huge selling factor for them. They had comic books and TV animated commercials for the comic books. It ran issue number 1 in 1982 all the way to issue 155 in 1994, and featured most of the characters and most of the figures and vehicles and things throughout the line. Some things got excluded, but a lot of it was featured in the comic, at least for an issue. And they are binding them all and printing them on these cool, like, faux leather-bound books. I am skipping it. I own almost the complete comic book collection in original issue form. There's a few issues that I'm missing, but very few. Less than a handful. I have all of the first several books, maybe the first 70 issues, in hardbound reprints that have notes from Larry Hama printed in them that were done by IDW. And so what I might do is get reprints. Skybound's going to sell these reprints at retail later, just like in paperback form. If they can survive the printing process and get all the way through in those individual releases, I may try and get the later issues in their in their paperback versions to go finish off the series for my reprint collection. But the hardbound ones I already have are really nice, and I really just don't want to put out the money to buy another whole set of these comics. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know if Skybound will get to do the paperbacks because, it depends on sales, and a lot of people are going to buy this Kickstarter because it is doing gangbusters, which is fantastic. I'm super happy for Skybound. I'm super happy for Larry Hama and anybody else involved in this. It really is a testament to the G.I. Joe community and shows how much we love this brand, that so many people are jumping in on this. All right, it's time to talk about Ultimate Thundercats. The Super 7 Ultimate Thundercats really started with Mattel after they finished up, or almost finished up, their Masters of the Universe classics. They started with Thundercats classics. Then they closed down Matty Collector and passed everything to Super 7. And Super 7 has been re-releasing some of the Mattel figures and expanding on that and doing a lot of different characters. And I was keeping up with the line pretty much completely for a long time. I am starting to become more selective with the characters, as wave after wave is some new version of Lion-O and Mumra because they swear those sell the best. I just don't need a lot of repaints or every single version of every screen, every way they were ever seen on screen on my shelf. But I do want the different characters, and I'm very excited that they have done, I think, 2 of the Lunatacs. This might be, Aloro, I think, was the first one. So Aloro is a member of the Lunatacs from the Moons of Plundar, along with his comrades. He was freed from his lava prison by the mutants. Aloro is formidable in appearance, but avoids combat. He prefers to rely on his mesmeric skills using the Psychic Club. Aloro can focus and amplify his abilities. He is a master of mind control and manipulation, with the ability to hypnotize and bend others to his will. I think Chilla was also done, and I think she might have just been up for a pre-order, hasn't shipped yet, and he's the first one to ship, but I could have them reversed. I really liked the Lunatacs as a kid, and I would love to see them finish that subgroup. Alright, so we've got a Loro out of the package. His arms seem very long. He is sort of a broad-shouldered but tall character. With his belt line being up so high, I feel like it makes his arms look very long. He's got a little bit of like a small head with a funny smirk. This is very much how he looks in the cartoon. But he does come with an alternative head where he's like laughing or cackling. I kind of think I might display him with that head. I almost always display these guys with the head that is on them in the package, because generally it's sort of like the most normal head. But I love this laughing head. I think it looks great. He's got an eyeball on his chest there. His skirt and hair and everything is very flexible so as not to get in the way of him posing. He's got boots that kind of remind me of Panthros a little bit, with the toe, like the samurai slipper kind of thing, or ninja slippers. But he looks awesome. He's got an array of hands, which is typical with his line. He comes with several episode-specific accessories, I'm sure. This little chest, it actually can open up. And I don't know whether this other item belongs inside there, but he came with a little medallion type of thing, which does definitely fit in the chest, but I don't know if that's, again, episode-specific or not. He has his staff here, and he comes with two different orbs that can fit into it. They have little dents in the side of them that he can then, like, clip. If I can do it, if I can make it work. So the orbs can get clipped to his staff. There is a yellow one and a blue one, so one is kind of unactivated, the other one is activated. He also comes with a map. It's just a kind of a sheet of plastic with some nice details painted on it. But all these things give him, scene-specific environments and elements to deal with. He's got open hands, he's got pointing hands, accessory holding hands and fists. Everything you need for a classic Ultimate figure, and he looks really good, and I'm super excited to have him in my collection. Next up is an oldie but a goodie. This was an earlier repaint from the line. This is Spirit Jaga. This is the only repaint, I think, that I've collected from this line. They've repainted Lion-O in red to be like an evil version of Lion-O. They did a blue translucent Lion-O for like a frozen and ice version or color change version. They've done a see-through Tigra for his invisible powers. They did a yellow see-through Chitara for her like speed running ability. But Jaga to me in blue is actually more interesting, or more, if I'm only going to display one version on my shelf, the version I want more so than like the living Jaga. So I'm really excited to have this guy in my collection, and let's check him out. Long ago, Jaga served Claudus, original Lord of the Thundercats. Charged with guarding the treasures of Thundera, he became a mentor to Claudus' son Lion-O. During Thundera's destruction, Jaga led the exodus of refugees. He later sacrificed himself to pilot the flagship safely to the distant Third Earth. Yet his spirit continues to guide the now adult Lion-O, reaching out from the spirit realm at times of great need. He's definitely an Obi-Wan Kenobi type. I'm 99% sure I have the regular version of Jaga already. Alright, here we have this frosted blue Jaga out of the package. He does have a little bit of paintwork on him with the Thundercats logo on his cape. His beard and his eyebrows are painted. He's got some areas that are very clear and other areas that are a little bit frosted. I think that helps hide some of like the sonic welds and articulation points, as well as give him just a little bit of definition. His cape is less see-through, and it is a plastic cape, so you don't have a cape with wires or anything like that. You can't pose him like winging it around himself, sort of when he would disappear. But it's a great-looking figure. He has accessory holding hands currently on him, but he comes with several other hands, outreach ones like a handshake or casting a spell type hands. He's got other accessory holding, and sort of like a, I don't know, like a scratching, or maybe it is another hand holding. I don't know. There's no fists, so to speak, but there are some pretty close to being closed accessory holding hands. Oh, I popped his outfit apart. So apparently his cape does attach to his little strap in the front there. And me adjusting that made that pop apart. I don't like that too much. I hate when figures, armor, or accessories, pop off real easy. Let's see if I can get that reattached. That seems much better. He also comes with a frosted version of the Sword of Omens. This looks like this would glow in the dark. I would not be shocked if that does. But it's really nice looking. It's got the closed eye of Thundera on there. And he also comes with another sword that I just threw. He also comes with another sword that is episode specific. Next up, we got Hachiman. This is an ally of the Thundercats. He is a samurai or a lost Ronin, perhaps, you know. Hachiman is a noble samurai from the planet of the Red Sun. A skilled swordsman who wields Thunder Cutter. He adheres to a code of honor known as Bushido and abstains from luxury, though he can sometimes be short-tempered or overconfident. Hachiman was summoned to Third Earth by Mumra and tricked into believing the Thundercats were evil. After learning of this deception, Hachiman became a staunch ally to Lion-O and the Thundercats. I had Hachiman as a kid and remember him being in several episodes. That was one thing that I thought was cool about Thundercats, is it was, I mean, not rare, there were a lot of one-off characters, but more often than not, a lot of those allies or villains that showed up, unlike, let's say, He-Man, where the core characters repeated, but a lot of people, like Fisto, or Snoutspout, or Stridor, made very, you know, kind of single episode or minimal episode appearances. Thundercats tended to bring people back. The Tuska Warriors were in more than one episode. Hachiman was in more than one episode. The Burbles were in more than one. It was more true world building, I think. And here we have Hachiman out of the package, and his face, this face sculpt is phenomenal. Very anime, very animated look to it, which I just think looks really good. The vintage figure never really captured his essence to me. It was very standard and bland. I think this guy looks great. Now, one difference between this guy and the vintage figure, as far as his helmet goes, is instead of giving you a removable helmet that fits on poorly, they just made it 2 heads. And they didn't give us an empty head, so you can't have him hold his helmet unless you turn it around so that way you can't see the face. But so that way it looks good when his helmet's on. You get a separate head with the face in there, and that's a decent solution. And I guess I get why they wouldn't give you the extra head or the extra helmet without the head in it, even though that might be a nice way to display him. He has a loop on his belt, and he also has a scarab. Does fit in there. It's pretty snug. It doesn't go all the way through, but that can hold his sword Thunder Cutter, which is really awesome and a lot of fun. He does come with 2 swords. I don't recall whether he uses 2 in the animation or not, but they also gave him a really cool-looking lightning effect. So if you want him to have like an energy blast coming off that sword, you are in luck, and that looks really nice. He also comes with an array of hands, so both of his hands that he comes out of the package with are accessory holding hands. He has a sort of cupping hand for each side. He has some fists. He has a pointing hand and a basically thumbs up hand. And his final accessory is a belt with a lion head on it. That's kind of folded up as like a little display. This is where I was thinking like a helmet without a head might be nice to be able to display a helmet, the belt, and a sword. But I'm really excited to have Hachiman. I love how they did his armor on a swivel here, so you can really do a lot of poses without it getting in the way. And again, his skirt armor is very flexible, so you can do a lot of great poses there. And yeah, I just liked Hachiman a lot as a kid, and I'm really glad to have an Ultimates version of him. The last Thundercats figure I want to take a look at is Snarf. Snarf, Snarf! Snarf Osbert, or Snarf, as he prefers to be known, was young Lion-O's nursemaid. After Lion-O grew up on his way to Third Earth, Snarf remained his devoted caregiver, sometimes much to Lion-O's chagrin. While Snarf can be pessimistic and lacks the skills of a warrior, he can also be brave and agile when necessary, honorable, true, just, and loyal. Snarf embodies the code of Thundera, but he adds a compassion all his own. So Snarf is the annoying sidekick character. I always find it interesting if you look back at the early production drawings of Thundercats, the ones where they don't really seem to have any clothes on, and you see the drawing of Snarf, and you have to wonder, did they plan on him being as, like, goofy as he became in the cartoon? Was that the initial plan all along, that little sketch of a more animalistic cat person being a goofball? Or was that not the intention? It's hard to say, but he became kind of like the sort of the laughingstock of the show, the butt of a lot of the jokes. But he's also beloved. And so Snarf here comes with 3 different heads and a bunch of great accessories. They are also doing Snarfer. I did pass on Snarfer. Even though Snarfer's never had an action figure before, the collection's getting very big, the number of figures. And I just don't know if I need another Snarf that looks almost the same but is smaller in that collection. So while I know Super 7 would love for us to buy every single figure, like I said, I've really started cutting back on the Thundercats stuff. I do love that they designed him with a tail that he can stand on. This is a thing he did often in the cartoon show to make himself be taller or more menacing or to reach things. And to have a toy that can do that and balance because of the included stand is really great. I love that. You can also unplug it and give him a more normal tail if you want him to be more of the four-legged Snarf or the bipedal Snarf but not standing on his tail. He comes with an episode-specific egg.
You guys ready to let the dogs out? Snarf, snarf!
He comes with a man purse.
It's a satchel. Indiana Jones had one.
He comes with the Sword of Omens in dagger form and a claw shield. This is really cool. Possibly reused parts, but it's nice. If Snarf's the only one you have and you want to display him, he often had to go fetch the claw shield or the sword for Lion-O to help him out. And I was under the impression that one of the heads could hold the Sword of Omens in his mouth, so, he could pick it up and run on all fours to get this to Lion-O, which is pretty cool. So he comes with sort of a static or possibly sad face, a happy face, and they did a really great job of the Snarf face that can hold the sword, also sort of looking like the agitated or ready to fight Snarf. They balanced that well, I think, where it's not you can only use this head to hold the knife look, but it's also like a face that you might want. So I think that's really awesome. Obviously, this is a very tiny figure to get for the price of a Super 7 Ultimates. Part of the reason why I didn't go after Snarfer, it's just so tiny to pay full price. And I get it. They're paying full price for the mold, and they're paying a lot to tool him up and maybe to sell less. Although I think I put Snarf in as a B-lister for sure. Most people that collect Thundercats would want a Snarf. Snarfer, though, might be a D-lister. But it's a really well-done figure. I really like him, and very excited to have him in my collection. We've been needing a really good Snarf for a long time. Did anybody pre-order the O-Ring Ghostbusters? I forgot to bring this up earlier. For Ghostbuster Day, the 40th anniversary of the original movie, Hasbro released O-Ring G.I. Joe style 4-pack of the 4 Ghostbusters, as well as a Ecto-1 that works for them. I have not ordered them yet. They sold out on Hasbro Pulse right away. My buddy Jeff from the It's Jeff YouTube channel sent me a reminder that they are also available from Big Bad Toy Store, which I plan to order them from there because I do want them. O-Ring Ghostbusters sound fantastic. Although I've got so many Ghostbusters in so many scales. I don't have an Ecto-1 in the big scale, the collector scale, the 6-inch Mattel figure line. They never produced the Ecto-1. It was a Kickstarter type fan-funded project that failed, even though I had backed it. It was going to come with 2 of the Ghostbusters with removable proton packs. This one is happening in 3 3/4 scale, and I think I want to get it. So in the comments down below, let me know what your thoughts are about estate sales and the end of your collection. Let me know what you think of the Ultimates and or the Ghostbusters, or did you order Dan Klingensmith's books? I know that was a lot of assignments I just doled out to you guys there for the comments, but I really do appreciate people commenting. It's so awesome to have that back and forth. I try to respond to a lot of the comments. If you ask a question in some way of me or kind of give me your opinion, I try to respond back to the majority of them. Do me a favor, hit the like button. Tell YouTube that this is quality content. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Share this video with a toy collecting friend. If you want to support the channel further, consider joining us on Patreon. But overall, just thanks for hanging on the peg with me.